About a year ago, I set out on a mission to find the best hitch bike rack that I could find for my needs. I looked at Kuat, Thule, 1UP. I landed on the Yakima Dr tray. The Dr tray has a lot of great features. My favorite is the amount of separation between the bikes. I can put two bikes on without the handlebars or the saddles coming in contact with each other. And in my review that I did of this rack a year ago, I said it was almost perfect with one design flaw, and that is the bikes can rock backwards pretty easily. It wasn't a deal breaker. I could get over it, but it was a major annoyance. Well, I'm pleased to announce that Yakima have actually improved this rack, and I have the same rack, but I got the new trays, and they've done three things to keep the bikes from rocking backwards, and it's perfectly executed. The first thing that they did was they put a stop on the back of the wheel cup. So this little extension here was not on the original wheel cup, which allowed this thing to pivot. In fact, I'll show it here on the rack. This is the original wheel cup, and as you can see, it rocks back really easily. And like I said in my review of the rack, when I put on a trail bike with a long wheelbase, it allowed the rear tire to just kind of hang off the back. This is the new one installed, and you can see that's as far as it'll rock back. The other thing that Yakima has done was redesign this front wheel stop. So this is the original one, and this is the new one. And I'm gonna put a bike on and I'll show you, but this one sticks up higher. The original one looks like it'll work, but it's kind of useless. The front tire can easily come over this thing, whereas the new one does a great job of keeping the front tire from rocking backwards. And finally, Yakima have actually made the wheel trays longer. And so this tray, the whole thing is 7 centimeters longer, so it's quite a bit longer. So what I'll do now is I'm going to put a trail bike on this thing, and I'll put it on the original wheel tray, which is the one here, and then we'll put it on the back one and we'll look at the difference. So with a bike with a longer wheelbase, like a trail bike, you can see that the rear wheel hangs off the back. So let's first look at the front wheel stop. You can see there's a gap here. This front wheel doesn't even come into contact with this little stop. And when you go around a turn, it can rock backwards. And when it rocks backwards, the front wheel comes out of this. And the bike, you know, if you're going down the interstate and your bike's wallowing around, it's a little disconcerting. So what I had to do was put the swing arm all the way up against the cable stop, and that would at least keep it from rocking back. And like I mentioned in that first video, I actually would put a strap around the front wheel to hold it in place. Now let's look at it on the newly designed tray. All right, so in the new design, first of all, the front wheel comes totally in contact with this stop. So the stop actually works on the new design. And then you can see that the rear wheel, because the tray is longer, doesn't hang over as much, and this thing is not going to go backwards at all. So this bike is totally secure. So I've got the arm about 2 inches from the fork, which is the way I like it. I don't like the swing arm contacting the fork. You know, it could rub the fork and mess up the paint. But if I push on this bike, like I'm pushing pretty hard, this thing does not rock back at all. Major improvement. Like I'd mentioned and even shown in that first review, which I'll link below, when I would go around a turn, this swing arm would just kind of move and the whole bike would rock. In case you're wondering if the newly designed tray that's longer is too long for a road bike, it's not. So this is a gravel bike, probably about the same wheelbase as a normal road bike, and you can see I can easily get the strap over the tire. So in this one, just like the mountain bike, that front tire comes in really good contact with that stop. And again, I'm pushing back on this bike and it's not moving, not at all. And like I said, I'm keeping a gap between the arm and the fork. And I even see this little piece of tape here I put. That was because the other arm came in contact with the fork. I can remove this now. Goodbye. That was so ugly and it would not stay on. Another thing that I'll mention for improvement is this button. This one was actually kind of hard to do when there was tension on it with it holding a wheel in. It was really hard to push this thing down. They've redesigned this button so you can easily push it down with your thumb or finger and it moves a lot easier. So just another little design improvement there. So I'm not sure if my first video had any influence on Yakima redesigning the Dr. tray, but regardless, I get really stoked when a company listens to feedback from its users, its riders, and makes changes to their products, and this is definitely a clear example of that. I said in that first video that the Dr. tray was almost the perfect bike rack. With this improvement, It's hands down the best bike rack for my needs. If you want to go back and watch that video, like I said, I'll link it below. You can see some of the other features that I really like about the Dr. Tray. Any questions or comments, drop those below. Thanks for watching.